The United Nations is convening a major global conference this June to spark action that will reverse the steady deterioration of the health of the global ocean. While people living in coastal communities have been witness to this ongoing decline in ocean health, this trend has major implications for people everywhere. Gathered with us to discuss the Ocean Conference and the importance of our oceans, seas and marine resources are Mr. Peter Thomson, the President of the United Nations General Assembly, Ms. Isabella Lövin, the Deputy Prime Minister of Sweden, Mr. Koroilavesau, the Minister of Fisheries of Fiji, and my dear colleague Hongbo, the Under-Secretary General for DESA and the Secretary General of the Ocean Conference. So I'm going to start with you, Mr. President. Why do we need a conference and why now?
Well, first of all, the ocean, as I'm sure everybody knows, is in a very bad way. And human-induced problems have to have human-induced solutions. The solution to the parlous state in which the ocean has been put by human activity, by accumulated human activity, was the creation of SDG 14, Sustainable Development Goal 14, in the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. So having created that SDG 14, which is a comprehensive oceans goal with many targets addressing the various areas of oceans decline, from marine pollution through to declining fish stocks and degraded coastal systems and ocean acidification and so on. Having created that goal, our thoughts then turn to, well, how are we going to make sure that this goal is implemented by 2030, in fact by 2020 and 2025, because there are certain targets within the goal which occur earlier than 2030. So having had that thought, we then came upon this idea of let's kick off the implementation with a huge global ocean conference, the Ocean Conference, which is the only gathering of humanity which has been mandated by all 193 member states of the United Nations to come together and find those human solutions to those human-induced problems. So that's why we're gathering, and the outcomes from the conference will all be action-orientated in the years ahead.
So you are telling us it is a real matter of urgency.
Absolutely.
To start, the sooner, the better, to implement what we are required to do.
Whether you look at declining fish stocks that are reaching tipping points, or whether you look at the ocean acidification levels, or whether you look at the levels of plastic in our ocean, I think any sensible person can conclude that time is running out fast and we need to take action fast.
Mr. Minister, your country, Fiji, a very small country, I'm sure you can tell a lot of experiences of why do we need action. Tell us how the people of your country live this need for immediate action.
Well, firstly, we had the Category 5 cyclone in Fiji, which is quite a significant one. It is the strongest cyclone to have hit any country in the southern hemisphere. That's quite catastrophic for Fiji, and we're still recovering from it. And secondly, our ocean is warming up. The changing pattern of our main product is tuna. The migratory pattern has changed because of the conditions of the water. And of course, the degradation of the ocean, which is depleting our resources also, and creating a lot of havoc in our ocean.
So
Fiji.
strong economic impact on the population. That is the main
that's
impact that you are living
through.
through.
Both for offshore and inshore fishing.
Okay, good. Madam Vice Prime Minister, we spoke already that the conference is about solutions. What type of solutions are you looking for? Your country is surrounded by oceans as well. What would be really important to see happening so that we see a good impact in the region in which Sweden is located?
I mean, we are facing a number of problems when we look at our own oceans. We still have great impacts of overfishing, but also we see the plastic and the pollution is really not getting any better, but it's getting worse. So we need the solutions, and I think the technical solutions and also the regulations that we can share best practices to reduce marine litter is possible. We can recycle plastic. We should have producer responsibility, so those that produce the products take the responsibility of also the product at the end of its life cycle. So many of the problems that we see, there are actually solutions, and we can also have a positive effect of using and reusing material. So there we need to share experiences, share best practices, and this ocean conference will be the hub where we can actually share this knowledge, also transfer technology and support developing countries so that they will have access and possibility to change in the way that is needed for the oceans, because the oceans connects us all. And also on fisheries and illegal fisheries especially, we need to really shape up. We need to use the technology that is available for monitoring, control, and we also need compliance with the laws that are in place. We've been discussing these things for so long now. We're already having all the agreements, but what we need now is implementation. We need real change, and therefore, because we're all affected by this, all the countries, all the stakeholders must now form new partnerships to make it happen. That's the important. It's not kind of like quantum physics or something like that we don't understand. No, we know what we need to do. We just have to start doing it.
So what will trigger the fact that all what we know now really starts to be implemented?
What will trigger it is the deterioration of our oceans, the really bad shape that we see now. So if these trends continue with overfishing, with more and more plastic pollution in our oceans, we will have more plastic than fish in our oceans by 2050. It's really, really serious. So this is what we need to do in order for us to leave this planet with good conscience to our children and grandchildren. We need to take action now, and we can do it. So we don't have any excuses not for doing it. But I think the Oceans Conference is the first possibility where we can sit down and look at all the different problems that concern the oceans in one conference, and not looking at fisheries separately, climate separately, marine debris and pollution separately, and the impacts of developing countries separately. But this is all interconnected, and we need to form new innovative partnerships and gather the resources to make real change, and we can do that in this conference.
This is a very good point that I can start now the conversation with Mr. Wu. Yes, we are talking about Goal 14, but we are also trying to implement a package of the Sustainable Development Goals, Agenda 2030. How do you link them, the Goal 14 with the rest, and what can we do? One is the influence of one with the other.
Well, thank you very much. I think this is a wonderful question. And the very nature of Agenda 2030 is cross-cutting. It cross-cuts many areas: economic, social, environmental. So is the SDG 14. When we pick up SDG 14, we're not only talking about oceans and seas, we are talking about a holistic area, many areas. For instance, when we talk about SDG 14, we are thinking about navigation in the sea, we're thinking about the catch fish in the sea for food, we're thinking about doing tourism. But that is not all. Healthy or unhealthy of the sea and the sustainable use of marine resources have a direct impact on implementation of many other SDGs. For instance, number one, SDG number one, eradication of poverty. You know, many people along the coastal areas, they are very poor. Because if they could use them for the betterment of their life, they could use them in a sustainable way, their life will be changed. And the SDGs 2, end of hunger, that talking about food security and nutrition. Because we are actually receiving a lot of nutrition and the food from the sea. So we have to protect the sea. And number 3, health. The ocean and seas are the natural regulator of our climate. And they're also good for sanitation. And number 6, water. People think the seawater is salty. But without sea, you have no rain on the land. Just very, very direct linkage. And number 7, energy. I just mentioned the windmill in the sea and the tidal waves. And number 8, economic growth. I think the best use or sustainable use of marine resources would really have a big boost to the economic growth and create a lot of jobs. Last but not least, people are saying that the oceans sink 1/3 of greenhouse gas emission. If we lose the sea and the oceans, you just imagine what kind of situation we're going to have. As the Deputy Prime Minister was pointing rightly, we are handling this issue, not only talking about the ocean and seas. We take the entire SDG 2030 as a whole to push the implementation of the Agenda 2030, with SDG 14 as one of the vanguard.
I think you convince us of the real integration and the horizontality of the SDGs. I would like to ask each of you, looking at the next generations, something very concrete that you want to see coming out from the discussions and the agreements of the member states and all the leaders in June. Mr. President?
Well, I think, as Deputy Prime Minister has said, we're looking at this from this perspective of our children, the grandchildren, and those that come after. So this is about building for the future, so that they have the joy and the bounty of the ocean that we all had when we were young. I want your viewers to be aware of the fact that this is just not another conference. This is not just another UN conference where we get together and produce a report. The outcomes from this conference are really going to be a turning point in history when it comes to the moment at which humanity woke up and started reversing the cycle of decline, which the ocean is currently caught in, which, as I had said earlier, is a human-induced decline. So we've got, from this conference, we're getting together not just the 193 governments who have mandated the conference, but thousands of people who've registered from CSOs, NGOs, private sector, scientific and academic communities to all come and be part of this. And there are going to be 3 outcomes from the conference. One will be this call to action, which is the universal push by member states towards the recovery, which I have talked about. And so that's our universal political will. Secondly, of course, there will be the report, which Mr. Wu, as the Conference Secretary General, will be responsible for pulling together, which captures all of the elements of the conference and will in fact be our work plan for the next 3 years or so, will be what is in that report. And thirdly, and what excites me most, is this register of voluntary commitments that will be captured in Mr. Wu's report, but will be put together between today, because it's being launched today on the Ocean Conference website, and it will operate from today until the end of the conference, but I imagine will continue on in perpetuity. But for the purposes of our work plan coming out of the conference, there will be that register of voluntary commitments. Now, this is the opportunity for any human being to be part of the recovery of the ocean. For any human being who cares about the health of the ocean, have a look at that website, have a look at that registry, and get together with your community or talk to your MP to make sure that your government or the organization which you belong to is registered as making a voluntary commitment, whether it be cleaning up beach litter or stopping plastic getting into the ocean or eating the only sustainable fish in restaurants, whatever it is. Make sure that your voluntary commitment of your organization or your country is registered on that website, because that'll be our work plan going forward.
Mr. Minister, what will Fiji engage to do voluntarily but immediately implement it?
Yeah, Fiji, as a small island state, as you know, a developing state like the other Pacific islands, we have already initiated our programs to try and improve the conditions that we have in Fiji. We are encouraging a lot of different types of activities from the ocean that goes away from the traditional way that we have been treating our ocean. And as you know, Fiji has about 320 islands. Ocean is quite an important item to us, both in our daily lives, source of protein, and also for transportation among the islands themselves.
And Sweden, what will be your takeaways for your country and for the humanity?
So, no, but I totally agree that this should be the game changer for our oceans and how we look at how we need to approach the enormous challenges of our oceans, and we need to work together. And we need each and every government to sit down, look at all the 10 sub-targets of the Goal 14 and make their assessment on how are they going to protect 10% of their oceans? How are they going to reduce marine litter and other pollution? How are they going to work to eliminate illegal fisheries? How are they going to improve scientific cooperation? And all of these things needs to be addressed. We've signed up to that. So I think the conference will be the first step in a process where governments and other stakeholders, organizations should do their voluntary commitments, but those commitments should also be like the first step on how we're going to get there to 2030 to live up to all of these commitments to save our oceans, because if we don't do that, our oceans are going to be in an extremely bad shape by 2030, extremely bad, because there's under so much pressure from climate change, from warming, from acidification, from pollution, from overfishing. They're not taking it anymore. Really, we think the ocean is endless, but it's not. So whatever we throw into the ocean will come up somewhere else on the other side of the planet. And that's why I'm so happy that Sweden and Fiji are partnering as co-presidents of and taking this initiative.
Yeah.
Because whatever you do on your side of the planet will affect the oceans on the other side and vice versa.
What would you, Mr. Wu, expect from the citizens to get out of the conference? The determination, the implementation, but what do the citizens have to do as well?
Well, as a Conference Secretary General, I've been working with all the presidents and the member states. And I've been thinking, asking myself, what we can get from this conference. I think very first is the turning point or game changer. And by realize that ocean seas are so important, not only by the government officials or by the people for environmental protection, but by the entire the community, international community and young kids. So this is very important to raise the awareness of the ocean and seas importance. And secondly, I would say it will raise strong leadership. And because the member states or the national governments, they are in the driver's seats. They are taking the lead in doing all the work. So we hope that all the national leaders, they will be fully aware the heavy burdens on them to implement SDG 14. Thirdly, I think that the universal efforts are being made to implement the Agenda 2030. We're going to have a high-level political forum in July. What we are going to do, and we are doing now, will be the big contribution to the discussions in high-level political forum in July. So our meetings are just 1 month ahead of the HLPF. Last but not least, call for action. And if you look at the SDG 14, the targets are not set at 2030. in many areas 2020. We do not have a lot of time. So if people after this conference feel strong urgency to take actions, I think that's a success.
Well, Madam Vice Prime Minister, gentlemen, thank you very much for this. I think you're really transmitting the urgency, the need for a strong leadership, commitment, and action. So good work, and let's hope for a wonderful and efficient conference.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
No, sir?
Thank you.